Mr. Speaker, a very thorough audit released yesterday by Newspapers Canada catalogues the appalling record of Manitoba's NDP when it comes to access to basic information. Mary Agnes Welsh, in reviewing the finding, says, and I quote, "Manitoba earned a D grade because it was slow and stingy with information." End of quote. This is the complete opposite of what one would hope for a transparent and accountable government. Why is this NDP government so slow and stingy? When will this NDP government start being accountable instead of hiding information that belongs to the people of our province?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We take our responsibility for timely release of information very seriously. In fact, Mr. Speaker, our government received in 2012 2,190 requests for access for information. That was 80% of responses were provided, Mr. Speaker, on time. And it's important to note that the number of Freedom of Information requests is up by 1,637, Mr. Speaker. And we're nearly quadruple 553 requests in the year 2000, Mr. Speaker. That's about a 300% increase, Mr. Speaker. People work very diligently and very hard, Mr. Speaker, to provide information in a timely way, and we certainly take that responsibility very seriously.
Mr. Speaker, the audit said yesterday this government had a kitchen sink of exemptions. Well, today the minister's got a kitchen sink of excuses. The National Freedom of Information Audit singles out Manitoba's NDP for claiming, and I quote, "It wasn't feasible to provide data from its databases of repair and maintenance needs of provincial highway bridges." It said it would have to print out paper copies. End of quote. Miss Welsh commented that the Manitoba government software is from the Atari age. When will this NDP government get with the times and stop hiding behind archaic technology as excuse to have such ludicrous secrecy of public information?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the question from the member from River Heights. Our government enhanced and strengthened the Elections Manitoba Act by banning corporate union donations. That member did not support that from River Heights, Mr. Speaker, and neither did the members opposite, quite frankly. So we want transparency, Mr. Speaker. We want openness. We want fairness. We want Manitobans to feel that they do have a say in the electoral process. But members opposite, belonging to the PC party, as well as the member from River Heights, never supported that piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker. So he has some questions to answer to his constituents with regard to openness and transparency.
Mr. Speaker, the minister, as is typical, is wrong again. I did support that legislation. This NDP is slow and stingy.
Or misinformation.
Mr. Speaker, in a recent FIPA request, which I will table, we were asked to provide $80,000 and 289 for basic information on cases before the courts. Further, we are still waiting for a reply to a request for information put forward on February 25th. And the reply is now not likely to come until after the session is over. It appears to be standard NDP practice to file responses late to make it difficult for opposition members to ask questions during the session.
Or to do their
Why
job.
is the NDP government so afraid to let Manitobans actually know what they're doing?
Mr. Speaker, we've made a lot of improvements with regard to FIPA, Mr. Speaker. In fact, we strengthened FIPA legislation to provide better access to government information, and some of the changes that we made, Mr. Speaker, changed how long cabinet documents, for example, can be sealed from 30 to 20 years, and protected negotiations between band councils in the province. Mr. Speaker, we have done a lot in the province of Manitoba to make sure that there is transparency and openness, Mr. Speaker, with regard to information. And I know members opposite would certainly agree that, and I would certainly agree with the National Freedom of Information Audit that gave laurels to the province of Manitoba, but also Alberta, with providing and releasing briefing notes in advance of, for example, national premiers meetings. Mr. Speaker, we've never said we're perfect, Mr. Speaker, but we're making certainly clear inroads with regard to providing more transparency with regard to the government of Manitoba, and we certainly look forward to making those improvements and even more in days to come.